Hi, everyone. Welcome to to our meeting, the West LA Democratic Club Environment and Clean Energy Committee. If for those of you who did not get the link to the agenda, here it is. Except, what is that? Sorry, something weird came up on my screen, that's all.
Okay. There's
Uh,
Connie.
why don't we get started with some introductions? I'm Mark Salzberg. I chair this committee for the West LA Democratic Club. And I guess I've been a member forever, for at least as long as Kelly has, since 2004, thereabouts. And Kelly, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name's Kelly Willis. As Mark, I am a past president of the club for a couple of terms, many moons ago. I've been the secretary pretty much ever since. That's why you'll see me wandering off and taking notes. And I've been kind of technical support for stuff, whether it's live events or website. Website right now just got kind of dropped back in my lap again, so I may be working on that over the next week or two. And yeah, I joined in 2004. I literally just came back from a Christy Holsted fundraiser out here in Palm Desert, Palm Springs area for Assembly District 47. So she doesn't look like she needs a lot of help for the primary, but it's going to be a near thing. She lost the seat by 85 votes of the last cycle. So out of 170,000 cast. So that's me.
Jane, why don't you introduce yourself? And if you could take half as much time as Kelly just did, that would be appreciated.
Well, I'm known for my brevity mostly. Jane Wishon here. I'm on the West LA Democratic Club board, right? Not steering committee, as an at-large member. Thank you.
What else are you?
Oh, and I'm chair of the West Side Democratic headquarters and a bunch of other things.
Okay, thank you. Cheryl?
Yes, good evening. My name is Cheryl Turner, and I grew up with a father who was an Eagle Scout. And so me and my brother became scouts. And so at a very young age, we were exposed to, camping, fishing, all kinds of outdoor activities. And that's where I developed a love for the environment. And I was appointed in the past as a representative to the South Coast Quality Management District, where I fought for clean air for the community. And so that's one of many reasons why I'm interested in the committee.
Cool.
Judy?
Oh, hi, I'm Judy Citron. Maybe I'm a carpetbagger or something. I don't know. I'm from Westchester, but we hang out with Mark. And I've produced a number of videos in the past about environmental issues, and now I'm very interested in like getting carbon fee and anything that will work to reduce put off as much as we can the climate crisis.
Yeah, I have a question for you. Whose forehead is that on your sweatshirt?
It's
Oh, okay, thank you.
and it says miss me yet. And I bought it on the day that Trump was inaugurated. So,
David, you want to say hi?
Sure. So I was invited here by Joanna Chen, and known Joanna for a long, long time. I'm trying to get more involved with things locally. I live in Playa del Rey, so I guess I'm a little bit maybe out of your range, but who knows? And I do a lot of other things. The main thing that I do is volunteer for an organization called Wellbeing Economy Alliance that tries to create some systems change about how we got where we are now and how we end up somewhere a little better. So
Thank you.
for having me.
Susan? Susan, you're muted.
Well, she wasn't, now she is again.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm Susan and I'm treasurer of the West LA Democratic Club.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. I want to remind everyone that we can't shout out. We have to take turns talking. So if you want to have a comment, please raise your virtual hand. And Kelly will let me know if I don't see it, and we'll get you on. If you have any questions that you want to put in the chat, send them to Kelly. So we're actually, I can't believe this, we are 5 minutes ahead of our schedule.
Hey, Mark,
Yeah.
you still need to do intros on Lewis and David Duncan.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see them join us. Louis?
Hi, I'm Louis Watanabe, and I'm at-large member on the board for the club. And let's see, I'm the interfaith guy, so I'm particularly interested in working with various religious groups to try to support the environment.
Thank you. And David?
Hi everyone, David Palmzieri. I'm a member of Dare Club, Citizen Climate Lobby, and other environmental organizations. Like you all, I care a lot about fixing the climate crisis and promoting conservation also where we can, especially in the LA area.
Thank you, David. So we've got about 5 minutes to kill. So any comments about anything at all?
That is so dangerous, Mark. That is just so dangerous.
You got to fit it in the 5 minutes.
Okay, so we got Swazi seat last night. Yay. Trump's trial for the payoffs has been set. We're having a good 24 hours, except for, well, I guess 24 hours were. And then, of course, there were the shootings in at the parade for the Super Bowl champs. That's not good.
Anything to do with environment or clean energy or climate change?
You don't think Swazi winning is good for clean energy and the environment?
Certainly better than the alternative.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I don't know his platform that well. What I will say is that I saw an article today in the New York Times, and unfortunately, it's one of those private newsletters for subscribers only, that said we've reached some tipping points, perhaps. You've probably seen the news that we may have reached tipping point in the flow of the Gulf Stream, that there's enough fresh water melting off of glaciers that could kill the flow of the Gulf Stream and plunge Europe into winter for the next 1,000,000 years or something like that.
I think it's 10,000, yeah.
It's certainly not a good situation. We'll be hearing a lot about that in the near future. I also read in a different article that we've reached a tipping point in the price of solar generated electricity, and we don't have to do anything anymore. Solar generated electricity will take over the world all by itself because it's cheaper than the alternative. Let's hope that's true. Connie and Wendy Rosen have just joined us. Connie, do you want to say hi?
There's Connie. Okay.
You're muted, Connie.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello. And why are you here, Connie?
To learn as much as I can about the energy and climate and the legislature.
Okay,
Let me you have all that covered, right?
well, we'll be talking about it for sure.
Okay.
Okay. Wendy, do you want to say hi?
Hi, sorry, I'm having issues because of all the rain and mud up here with signal. But it's very nice to see everyone and really glad you're all here. We have a special program committee that's for tracking legislation, and I hope you'll think about joining us on that committee to work with us tracking legislation.
We're waiting for Tina and Alina. Tina is Ben Allen's legislative director. So when Ben writes a bill, it goes through Tina and she does a lot of the hard work. And she's going to tell us about Ben's legislative package as soon as she gets here.
So Mark, if you want to talk a little bit about the committee's work before she comes in, let me know.
She's here.
Fantastic.
Tina. Yeah.
Hi, Tina. Tina, we don't see your face and we don't hear your voice.
But it says her mic's on. So it says the audio is working.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens.
For those of you who do not have a copy of the agenda, the link to it is in the chat. There she is. Hi, Tina.
There, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. It took just a second to dial in.
That's okay. I've just introduced you. I told everyone that you were Ben Allen's right-hand person, or maybe left-hand. I never remember whether Ben right-handed.
Yeah, he's left-handed, so that's a good call.
So you want to tell us a little bit about what you do, and if you can fill us in on what Ben's up to, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry that Senator Allen wasn't able to join. He's actually flying back from LA back up to Sacramento because they've got floor sessions bright and early tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. So I'm glad that I could join you guys today and tell you what our bill package is looking like for this next year. You know, obviously Senator Allen has focused a great deal on environmental and energy legislation over the last several years, and this year is no different. So I'm hoping to chat with you guys quickly about a few bills that we're introducing this week. This week is the deadline for us all to introduce the bills that we'll be moving forward with for 2024. But we also have just a couple of bills that we're still working on that are left over from last year. So bills we call two-year bills that are still in the hopper that we're spending a lot of time on. So I'll go over all of those with you guys. There's just a small handful of them. So to start with the new bills we've introduced, one of them was just introduced today and another one yesterday that are pretty big that we're pursuing this year. We've introduced SB 1143. This one is very, very exciting. It's something we've been thinking about for a long time. This establishes a household hazardous waste extended producer responsibility program. So you guys might be familiar with SB 54, which Senator Allen passed in 2022, that shifted the responsibility for plastic pollution onto the producers of that material, right? So it made them pay for the collection, recycling, or composting. It required a reduction in the amount of plastic being put on the market. It's been a huge success so far. We've had jurisdictions from across the country reach out to us to see if it can be duplicated, which is very exciting. So now we're looking to do the same thing for household hazardous waste. So if you think about the products you have in your household, like toxic cleaning materials, things like caulking, all of that really nasty stuff you have in your garage that you don't know what to do with, that has the skull and crossbones on and it says toxic. We're actually supposed to take those to county household hazardous waste facilities. They're not supposed to go in the garage. Our cities and counties are spending millions of dollars trying to get this material out of the waste stream. SB 1145 will instead task the producers of that material to ensure proper collection, ensure that consumers know what to do with it, ensure that consumers can keep it out of the waste stream, and hopefully using the same kind of market-based fee mechanisms we did in SB 54, we can encourage the producers to move towards more friendly options. So that is the big spicy bill we'll have for this year, that we know is going to be another really heavy lift, just like SB 54 was. But again, just like, tackling that, the plastic pollution waste, we're looking to do something really big on household hazardous waste as well. And again, not just, keeping this material out of the waste stream and keeping it, when consumers don't know what to do with it, they tend to just dump it down their drain, flush it in the toilet, throw it away. So we'll both be protecting the environment, keeping our water supply clean, and then also ensuring that consumers have the knowledge that they need to properly dispose of this material. So that is, I would say, top of the line, most exciting environmental bill that we've introduced so far this year.
Cool.
And did you have you have a question on this bill?
Yes, I do. I have a question because as a homeowner and as a person who's gotten older with years and takes lots of medication and have to have ample supply of water, not LA City water, and just things that I have to purchase and use, and they accumulate. And I thought I would do a good job and try to help the city and the county with waste disposal, and bag up some of this stuff and find out where do I take it, and just have somebody take it from me. And I had the most difficult time. Spent a whole afternoon and then call back the next day, and all of my stuff, PO bottles and all that needs to be discarded. I'm still waiting to get more information. Yes. And they tell me that there is a huge waste disposal for medical supplies at UCLA. And most of the people at UCLA don't know it's there. And and so with this I'm sorry.
Just what I was getting, what was the question exactly? You want
to? Okay. With this bill, I would like for it to be able to include information and instructions, simple instructions with clear information, because we should be able to get rid of stuff that's hazardous from our homes. As a matter of fact, I wish they would set up a program where if we get it together, they come and pick it up.
Exactly.
But I'd like to see
you're
something
absolutely
like that
right.
in the bill.
So
so the bill, as we introduced it, does actually have an entire section that calls on the producers to develop a consumer education component, because if we as consumers don't know what to do with this material, then any kind of collection program is not going to work, right? And so not just the education, but ensuring convenience. That's the other thing. If there's not a convenient way for us to dispose of this material, either if it's, curbside, or if there are more regular, easy to access collection points, folks will just either throw it down their drain, dump it in the toilet, throw it in their garbage. Absolutely. That's a key component of this measure. You're absolutely right.
Thank you, Tina. Let's let Tina go on with the other bills. If you could all hold your questions till she's done, I think we'll
Okay.
get through this quicker.
Okay, that sounds good. So the other bill we are planning to introduce tomorrow, this one's very near and dear to Senator Allen's heart. You guys know how much he cares about our state parks and how important they are to him. One of the things that we found in, talking with folks up and down the state is, while parks stay open, the lack of funding for our state parks to just operate and manage them, much less try to expand them, the funding is simply not there. We've done a little bit of digging and found that there's not a dedicated funding source for operations and maintenance of our park facilities, but B, even if there were philanthropic endeavors trying to raise money to support our parks, it is very difficult for them to get that funding to the state park system. So we're going to introduce a bill tomorrow that will establish an endowment account. We're looking at doing it through the Natural Resources Agency, prioritizing state park funding, to create a fund that would allow investments to really protect these state jewels that the state has said, okay, these are pristine areas for the public, for the people of California, that we want to set aside for recreation, for enjoyment. What we need to do is ensure that they remain pristine, remain in operating condition, et cetera. So this fund will set up that endowment to ensure we have long-term funding for these properties. So that's very exciting. We've been talking to a bunch of folks in the financial sector to figure out how to get this right, to ensure it'll last. So that one, I don't have a bill number for you yet because that one will be introduced tomorrow. And then two key ones I want to highlight, because they're bills that we've been working on since last year, that are still a top priority. One of them is our climate resiliency bond, that is SB 867. So that currently asks the voters to approve $15.5 billion in general obligation bonds. So this would be funding that the state borrows to invest in climate resilience. So that looks like water supply, clean drinking water resilience, fire resilience and mitigation, extreme heat. So developing things like community cooling centers, planting trees, park access, since we know that really helps in times of extreme heat, flood control, sea level rise investments, and then also investing in 30 by 30. So helping to protect natural resources in the face of climate change. Like we can see now that some of the areas that we might have thought to protect before or protected before for habitat will no longer be viable for habitat as temperatures rise. So we need to look at things like, how are we going to get salmon higher up into the streams where the water is colder? So we've got a $15.5 billion bond proposal that we're hoping to get before the voters in November that would fund these types of investments. And this has been something we've been working on for several years. We've been talking to the governor's office, talking to the assembly. There are a couple of other bond proposals out there that we're trying to gel with to get all the parties together to talk about, okay, if we're going to do climate investments, what does that look like on the ballot? So that remains a top priority, and we're hoping that that comes to fruition. The timing on that has to be earlier to get on the November ballot. So we're looking at finalizing that this spring. It's a tough economic time. So, you know, we're hoping for $15 billion, but we might have to shrink it a bit, but we're pushing pretty hard to get the maximum amount of investments we can get. The last bill I want to bring to your attention is SB 615. So this bill is requiring EV battery recycling. So, and this is incredibly important right now because as more and more EVs are coming onto the market, and we've seen an uptick the past decade or so, more and more batteries will be coming to their end of life. So our goal with this bill is to get ahead of that and put a system in place before the retirement of those batteries. So we have a proper way to collect them and get them into the facilities that want to recycle this material. So you've got material like lithium and cobalt that is super high value that we want to make sure we're capturing instead of having to go out to get more natural resources to make these products. We want to get the material recycled. So the bill requires the producers of the batteries, be it your Fords or Nissans or Chevys, or a company like LG that might be making these batteries, requires them to ensure that their batteries are getting recycled at the end of the day. So that's something that we've been working on since last year that we're going to continue to push over the finish line this year.
That's
So I'm happy to answer questions on any of these. I know that was very fast to go through them all.
it's exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I have a question. Connie kind of referred to this question already. One of the things that's really hard to figure out when you're talking about household and hazardous waste is leftover drugs. I mean,
Right.
I've got prescriptions that I will never use, but I don't know what to do with them. Is
Yeah.
that included in this hazardous waste bill?
So there was a bill passed, I'm not recalling the year, I want to say it was 2018 by Senator Hannah-Beth Jackson that dealt with sharps, and I think medical waste was in that bill as well, where there's supposed to be take-back bins at pharmacies to capture that material. I can look into that a little bit more because I know the folks who worked on it and make sure that that material was in there. I do not believe that medical, like, leftover prescription drugs fall under household hazardous waste. I think it falls under the drug program instead. And one of the things that, we're going to be careful with in this bill is to ensure that the material that is supposed to be collected through another avenue, like, paint, for example, has the paint care program, that material will still go through that particular stream. So if there's already collection set up for medical waste, we want to make sure that medical waste stayed in that stream. So let me follow up with you and to make sure that that's correct, but I think that is true.
Thank you. Susan, you've got your hand raised.
Mark, let me do it in order. Wendy was first, and then Cheryl, and then Susan.
Okay.
Hi, Tina.
Hi.
This is a great package of bills. I have a couple questions. One, can you clarify the first bill number? Was it SB 1143 or SB 1145?
43.
Okay, and then I wanted to ask you also about SB 571, which, we're on the west side, so some of us live in the hillside areas, and fire is a big concern.
Right.
And we're also looking at that bill. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we did manage to get that one out. So that one's over on the assembly side now. That was a tough one. I'm not sure if you watched the debate on the Senate floor. Simply asking the Board of Forestry to update their regulations, it seems to be causing a whole lot of headache to folks. I mean, the ingress and egress is still really important. The only reason I didn't bring it up is I know we're still trying to figure out how to address that issue. We were given a little bit of grace to see if we can figure out the details, but we're still trying to figure it out. I mean, it's a tough. That bill's got a lot of opposition, and we're trying to figure out a way to thread the needle to ensure that we're building in areas that are safe to build in, and when we're building in areas that have a fire risk, are those developments being planned in a way to ensure public safety? We think the answer currently is no. We think that the regulations that were developed still don't provide the level of safety that's necessary. I don't know how we're going to figure out a way to improve it. We're still working on that, to be honest with you.
Cheryl.
All right. Hi, Tina. Thank you for being here. My question is, well, first I want to acknowledge that Ben Allen has led the way in proposing legislation relating to the installation of EV chargers, especially in
Yeah.
multifamily housing. And
Right.
he's done a number of amendments. And so I'm just curious as to, is he planning any more amendments? And what can we do to help provide a source of funding? Right now, it's the tenant's responsibility who desires to have the EV charging
Yeah.
installed to pay for everything, which is good for the housing providers, but it does
Right.
on the tenant.
Right. Right. That's a great question. We did run that legislation. I'm not going to remember what year it was, to ensure that renters in multifamily housing had the opportunity to install or to have installed charging stations. That's one element of the bond that I mentioned, SB 867. There's funding in there currently to improve EV charging infrastructure. However, I will say the state just did get an influx of federal dollars, $15 billion from the feds. A big chunk of that is going to go to EV charging. I am very happy to report that Senator Allen was placed on the budget committee that deals with these issues. So we are going to have an opportunity to track that very closely and ensure greater equity in how that funding goes out. And that remains a high priority.
Great. Thank you.
Susan.
I was going to go back to Mark's thing about the drugs and ask a question if this is something that can be, I guess, made mandatory. There is one pharmacy by me that has a bin outside the pharmacy. When you walk up to go to get your prescription, there's like a trash bin there that you can dump your old prescriptions in. Now, it is the only one around me. I've been into 3 other pharmacies in the same area, and none of the others have it. And 2 of them are the same chain. So I'm just sort of curious, like, can they make them be in part of this waste disposal thing, be mandatory that all pharmacies have them? It can't be that big a deal for them to put a trash bin out in front of their.
Right.
And I know that and I know that it gets used because the first time I saw it, I was going to take a prescription in and the gal said it's full. And I had to wait and go back a couple of times before it was empty.
Oh
and
my
add
God.
my medications to it. And the last time I was there, there was somebody who came in and dumped a bunch of prescriptions in, and he had a bag of them and he was going to drop the bag, and the girl said he couldn't put them in the bag. He had to dump them out of the bag into the bin. But
yeah, so this
like,
speaks to convenience. Absolutely.
and it seems like so much common sense. It's like, oh, this would just be so easy. When you're done with your prescription, you just take it back to the pharmacy and put it in the trash bin.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Again, let me look into that because I do believe that every pharmacy that's dispensing drugs is supposed to have those take back bins. And so it might be a matter of enforcement as opposed to needing a legislative change.
No.
So I'll come back to the group with that information.
Yeah, because not all pharmacies have.
And now it's
a
my
little
turn.
bin.
Now it's my turn. Working backwards from here, I've had exactly the same experience that Susan has. The guy, the Rite Aid out here in Palm Desert, where I am right now, it's a key lock on their bin that's in on the front wall of the pharmacy section in there. He unlocked it, could not get the thing pulled open because there's so much in it. And I went to 3 other, there's a Walgreens, there's another Rite Aid. Neither one of them had bins. He said, yeah, we're the only one in the neighborhood. So same issue, convenience, but yeah, I like the idea of the mandatory. Cheryl was talking about the EV chargers. I just read an article, and I will dig it up and send it to Mark. I just read an article about how the law now says that renters and owners in condos are allowed to put in their own chargers at the end of their parking space, their assigned parking spaces. Cheryl's talking about, yeah, well, yeah, is that my money? And I would think that at the back end, it's an improvement to the facility when the renter leaves or the condo owner sells. So there needs to be a little bit more definition on whose responsibility and what the value is on it. The one that I put my hand up for was to go back to your EV battery recycling. I just got a solar system put on my roof, and now one of the big pushes that they're making for solar systems is battery backups. Are those batteries going to be included in this EV recycling? Because to a certain extent, it's the same technology. It is going to be included.
Right.
Okay.
So that's a really good question, but so it requires a little bit of unpacking. There are different types of those storage systems. One of the things in 615 in the bill talks about how when batteries come out of cars, so if you drive an EV, you get a brand new EV, it's got a battery life over my vehicle's 10 years old, 11 years old now. It's only running at about 80% of its battery capacity. So at some point when that battery needs to be replaced, it still has capacity. And the idea is to then reuse that battery for storage as opposed to sending it straight to recycling. So there's that component of it. But then you've got your Tesla wall chargers that are separate from the batteries that are in vehicles. When we began this conversation with the vehicle manufacturers, we were only looking at the vehicles coming out of, or the batteries coming out of vehicles. However, since the fire in Hawaii, actually, we began talking to the folks over at EPA, and they were finding that it was the storage batteries that were incredibly problematic. So they actually suggested to us that we include those batteries in 615 and ensure that there's proper collection and take back. So we're beginning to explore that at a bigger scope than we initially envisioned, but it is the same technology at the end of the day.
Cool. That's great. We're leasing this system, even though it's installed on this.
Yeah.
And the part of the reason to lease is because they'll replace the panels and they'll replace the battery when it starts being insufficient. And one of the questions I had, which they didn't have an answer for, is, well, where's that battery go?
What happens to it? That's right.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tina. This is terrific. Are there more questions? Come on, you guys.
And Mark, you know how to reach me. Mark, I'll send you some information on SB. I think 212 was the number, if I remember, from back in 2018, the Hannah Jackson bill on medical waste.
That would be great. That would be great. And I'll get that distributed.
Hang on a second. Wendy's got her hand up here.
I do. Up, if you could keep us in the loop on whether they make it through committee, if there are changes that are substantial or substantive. We would just love to keep in touch with the office all the way through the process. And really, again, just thank you.
That's fantastic.
Great update and really strong package. We know that Ben is a climate champion, an environmental champion, and we just really appreciate you and want you to know that.
Thank you so much. And I know, Wendy, you've been in touch with Dylan.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great rest of your meeting.
Thanks, Tina. We're so glad you came.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Have
Nice
a good
to see you.
night.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Okay. I hope you all enjoyed that. I think we all learned something.
Absolutely.
The next item on the agenda is our elections project. This is going to be briefer than I'd like it to be because there isn't a lot to talk about yet. climate champions. We have some rules at the West LA Democratic Club. We can't ask anybody to work on a campaign that's not for a Democrat. And we have a policy that we don't work on campaigns for one Democrat if their opponent is another Democrat. So that applies in the primaries in the top two. That doesn't leave us with a lot of places to work right now. We have been advertising and letting everybody know about the George Whitesides campaign. George is in there. So thank you. And I've been sending out that link. We now have both phone banking and we have door knocking. If you want to knock on doors and you need a ride, let me know and I'll see what I can arrange. The other item that I have is the Environmental Voter Project, which is really interesting, at least in concept. They go out and they find out who ranks the environment as their number one issue. They do surveys. The only people that they survey are people who never vote. So we now have a list of people who don't vote, but if they did, habitual, every election voters voting for the environment.
Very cool.
It's a very cool concept. They do, they use all of the science of surveys that they can. One of the things, and I shouldn't say this because it's kind of a turnoff, they give you a script. You have to follow the script. So even though we're talking to the people that we want to talk to, we don't get to say what we want to say. We've got to follow the script because those are the words that are going to be most effective, according to their focus groups.
Yeah.
Getting these people to go to the poll. So, on the other hand, it's very easy to make the call. You don't convince them of anything. You just let them know that there's an election coming and we'd really like it for them to vote. Simple as that. So that is an effective way. In the agenda, you have links to the George Whitesides campaign for canvassing and phone banking, so you can sign up. And the Environmental Voter Project is also a link. It's not.
Okay.
Is it not going anywhere?
No, it's there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay.
It's a little funky in my browser, but when you click on it, it does. Yeah, you click on it and it has a drop down, and then you have to click on the drop down in order to get it to run. Okay, but it is there.
It was all this project is doing is telling the people to go vote, but does it tell them which people are strong on the environment and which ones aren't?
I'm sorry?
On your environmental project, you said you're not trying to convince them of anything but to vote. But
Correct.
but are they told which candidates are good on the environment and which ones aren't?
Nope. It's more effective to just tell them to go vote because they can voters often resent.
Something, I don't know.
The script does not do that. The script assumes, I think, that if the environment is their number one issue, they'll
They
figure.
know. They know who's playing their game.
That's right.
Connie's got her hand up.
Connie?
Of calling, and I guess what we're doing is listening to them and just saying, please go vote, please go vote. But what if they have a question, or, you know, they really, you know, want us to respond to a concern, to provide them with information? Or
We try to provide them with information about voting. Where they have to go to vote, when they have to vote, what the deadlines are, that kind of stuff. If they have questions about who to vote for, we direct them to the internet.
no, I was just curious because
That's how.
when we're non-responsive to some people, they may misread what's actually going on.
So
with
can I
the co-
just
Yeah.
with
maybe
Jane's
insert
got
a-
her hand up. I think she wants to get in on this.
Yeah, I just was gonna say, I believe it is a 501c3 charitable organization and therefore cannot specify any candidate or any political party. And that's why you're just doing education about voting and encouraging people to vote, because that's all their tax status can allow them to do. And so if you're calling on their behalf and you advocate they vote for a particular candidate, then you
No.
risk their 501c3 status with the federal government. So that's why they do it that way.
Yeah.
No, but sometimes they have questions like, when do the polls close? What time do?
Yes.
Yeah,
We can
And that's
tell-
what Mark
So-
says they're doing,
We
yeah.
can let them know when to vote. We can let them
Yeah.
know the deadlines.
Yeah.
We can even give them a website in their area if they have additional questions. But we do not refer them to a particular candidate.
Mhm.
Okay, in addition to all this, okay, and this will get more intense as we get closer to the general election. We'll be listing opportunities to campaign for Democrats who are running unopposed by other Democrats as time goes on. So when it's a tight Democrat versus Republican race, we'll let you know about those.
Okay.
That's all I have on the elections project for now. Are there any other questions? Okay, then I think we'll move to Wendy. Wendy's going to talk about the legislative action project. And I think she's got some pretty interesting information, including a meeting coming up.
I do. So today Tina gave us a really great update from Ben Allen's office. And last month we got an update from, who did we get an update, Mark, from last month?
We didn't have anybody last month.
Well, we've had Rick Saber, our assembly member, and we've had council, and we're going to continue to bring legislative representatives to our committee to give us updates on their bill packages. As you heard from Tina, the deadline for bills is Friday, tomorrow. And so there's going to be a flurry of activity. There's something like, I actually wrote it down somewhere. There are thousands and thousands of bills that have been introduced. And now it's sort of our job to figure out, what are the categories we're interested in the environmental sphere, and climate energy, and then two, how to sort of categorize them, and then how to keep track of them, and then decide which ones are priorities for us, and then which ones we want to actually monitor and participate in supporting. And
to do that, it's just like an incredible amount of work. And so Mark and I, Mark actually identified an organization that's already doing that work. They're called the Climate Action Committee, the California Climate Action Committee. And we had a call with them. They also do, sort of very well-researched training on, how a bill becomes law, which Mark took the training and said it was really informative. And so he's put those links in an email to everyone. So if you're really interested, you can watch those videos. But it was a great and productive phone call. And both Mark and I have signed up for the Climate Action Committee, and we've checked off a lot of areas that we're interested in. And now we're getting lots of information from them. They meet twice a month. Anybody and everybody is welcome to join them. You can just go online and sign up for what you're interested in. And in these calls twice a month, they log all and monitor all of the environmental bills and the categories that they are tracking. They have some areas where they still need some work, like natural resources, 30 by 30, but they have, fleshed out pretty thoroughly water, climate, energy, carbon reduction. They have a bunch of categories. And Mark and I are going to start attending their meetings, and we'll be watching and, utilizing this list that they have, and bringing it into our program work. And so on Saturday, we will be having another one of our committee meetings, our project meetings, as we're called the project of this committee, at 11 a.m. And for anybody that's interested, we will talk about areas of interest, and how to track the legislative process, the bills that have come out, reminding everyone that, sometimes bills look great when they first come out, but as they go through their different committees, they get weakened, they get changed, some get strengthened. And so we have to monitor these bills. We can't just say, oh, we support, the idea of that. We have to really watch closely. It's a serious process all the way through, I believe, August, and then the governor has until sometime in September to sign them into law, veto them, or do nothing. And so we, as a project of this committee, will be monitoring the ones that the project identifies as the most important and highest priorities. And so if you're interested, please come on Saturday at 11. Or shoot me an email that you're interested, and if those dates and times don't work, dates and times that do. And hopefully we can put a really robust committee together to be monitoring the legislation this session, and get into a groove where eventually we hope that as the session ends in September, we can talk about what we didn't see that we would have liked to have seen, and how to actually recommend language for bills going forward. That's my report.
Yeah. I'd like to be hooked in on that 11 o'clock Saturday. I may only be able to do audio, but I'd like to.
I think there should be a link on the agenda.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it says click here. So if you click on the agenda, and then you can RSVP for that meeting.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
And we'll send that out to everybody, so they'll have that again.
And please, do send your ideas. Either you can show up and do it, or email us. All ideas welcome.
And can I just say how excited I am about seeing all the bills for the new term? I've seen a few already. I mean, one that I saw from Dave Min, who is running for Congress now, is it basically says utilities are no longer ever allowed to use money that you get from ratepayers through charging them for kilowatt hours for your own good. You can't use it for your own benefit in lobbying the legislature, in public lobbying, it's just not going to be allowed anymore.
What bill is that?
It wasn't.
Yeah, is it allowed now?
It actually isn't allowed now, but they have loopholes that they are crawling through to take your ratepayer money to pay for lobbyists. Think about that. Yeah, yeah.
Not good.
That doesn't. It happens more in public utilities than it's happening in municipal utilities. So if you're LADWP, I don't think we're seeing that. But if you're Southern California Edison, you might be.
Crap. So what was the context of that? There's a bill on the floor, or
Yes, it has been introduced by Dave Min.
what's the number on it? You know?
I have to
Okay.
get it. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
But that's the kind of thing that we're seeing. We're getting bills that genuinely look out for the consumer, for us, the ratepayers. And I'm really excited about that because that hasn't happened that much in the past.
Yeah. Do we have any committee plans to consider bills, to review bills and consider bills that are unfriendly to the public, to renters and persons, you know, low income,
So
and you know, people that would absolutely have a more difficult time with compliance with
Right.
such a bill?
we'll take positions on both sides, so supporting and opposing. If we have a bill that we should oppose, we'll oppose it. And if we should take a position on it, you'll help us with it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear that. We should.
Wendy didn't mention this, but it probably is worth saying that we won't take positions on bills without the entire committee agreeing to those positions. So we'll run them by the committee for a vote that yes, we're going to take this position or that position on a particular bill. Of course, we're not going to be doing that on thousands of bills. We'll pick 10 or 20 high priority bills, and that's what we'll be doing it on.
Mark, Jane's got her hand up.
Yeah,
Yeah, Jim.
I'm just sorry, in listening to this conversation, it seems like some of them waver into non-environmental bills. And I thought the purposes of this committee was to stick to environmental issues. If there are bills that we all think are wonderful, but they don't fall within the scope of an environmental bill, would we take that then to the board? What would we do with those?
Well, our remit, our focus is on environment, clean energy, climate change. That's what we deal with. If it's subject matter that is outside of that, there is a legislative committee for the board that's going to cover everything else. So we can certainly refer bills to them.
Mhm.
Haven't really worked that out yet. That's in process.
If I may, environment is an incredibly nebulous term. You know, it started out at meaning generally one thing in '71 with Earth Day, and by now it's down to, I mean, you know, paint manufacturers putting lead in paint is an environmental issue. Getting the lead off the windowsills is an environmental issue. I was having a discussion with somebody the other day, and it's like, we've spent all this time getting lead out of the environment with unleaded gasoline, and now we're putting all this lead back into the environment with all these guns.
Well, and I just want to add on to that there's a lot of intersectionality, right? Because when you think about housing, it's an environmental issue because if you're putting housing in, you know, you're creating sprawl, that creates car trips, right? And transportation really is an environmental issue. Housing is really, right? I don't know now really that you can separate out a lot of these things. So I think we need to look at a little more
broadly. And again, though, Mark's right. We only have a certain amount of bandwidth. So,
Yeah.
we can only pick 10 to 20, and that's a lot, right, of bills. So we're going to have to be discriminating.
Right.
And also, we need the more people we can get to work on the committee, the more priority bills we can look at. So it's really important to volunteer and, pick your priority bills. That's okay. And then let's talk about it.
Well, I just wondered then if the new political vice president shouldn't be part of these committee meetings, since I think that the other or whoever the chair of the other legislative committee is, shouldn't be part of these conversations, because, we don't want it to seem as though the right hand and the left hand aren't talking. So, thanks.
Definitely the right hand and the left hand need to talk. We recognize that, and we'll make sure that happens.
Really. What else you got?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I say, if there aren't any more questions on the Ledge Action Project and what we're doing with that. Wendy, what are we going to be covering on Saturday?
We're going to start talking about the different categories of environmental bills, and then, talk about what people's sort of interests are, and make a list of people who want to look at certain bills and figure out the simplest way to start to prioritize what we're looking at. So just, some planning, and just to get to know everybody and what they're interested in.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, sorry, Mark. And also one more thing, I'd really like to have a co-chair. And so if anybody is interested in co-chairing this committee with me, I have some ideas, but I'd love to have volunteers. It's always great to have volunteers, because then that shows, interest and excitement and engagement. So, please do let us know, and looking forward to seeing everyone on Saturday.
Great. Any other questions about the Ledge Action Project? Okay. Everybody who is here tonight is automatically added to our mailing list and to our Google group. So we occasionally send emails via Google group. Any of you may do that as well. People keep sending me stuff to be posted. You can post it yourself.
Cool.
And the link, you should all have that link. It's been sent to you. If you don't have it, let me know. It's sitting here in the agenda.
Now, hang on a second, Mark. That's the donate. Join the email address that you've got on there is simply text. It's lovely and it's blue, but it doesn't really have any activity underneath it when you click on it. So just so you know.
Which one?
The WLADC Environment and Clean Energy Committee at googlegroups.com.
That should be an email address. So
yeah, but it doesn't have a mail to underneath it. You
Copy
click
and
on.
paste.
Okay.
Copy and paste.
Okay, cool. There you go.
And you can, if you're not a member of the West LA Democratic Club, in theory, you can click the link that says membership and join the club. Kelly's going to test that for us as well and see if that works.
Thank you. Man, I'm already turning my pockets out tonight.
All right.
Yes, I actually will do this. And so, shall we all watch now while Kelly drops his wallet here?
We can do that.
Aren't you already a member, Kelly?
Oh, I'm already a member. This isn't just membership. This is throw more money in the kitty.
Okay.
So, I'll do it
It's
later.
also for people who might not be members yet.
Exactly, and that's more important. Pass that around to people that you know. Yeah.
Okay. We actually have some time left over. We're going to try and get done by 8:30, but so we just got free time for discussion. I was suggesting that we discuss building electrification. Only we don't say it that way anymore. We say building decarbonization. And I'm not quite sure why, but that's the way we talk about it. And it's a big deal. We're talking about 30% of emissions come from buildings. They come from our gas heaters, from our stoves that use gas. They come from our water heaters. Anything that runs on gas is putting greenhouse emissions into our atmosphere and increasing global warming.
Mm-hmm.
There's no law in the state of California or in any state right now that is a valid law under federal law that allows a municipality like the city of Los Angeles to require that all buildings be electric. So right now, building decarbonization is completely voluntary. That's why you see so many incentive programs. We'll give you this rebate, we'll give you that rebate if you just switch. Which is fine in principle, but there's still a lot of expense because now you've got to get somebody to install it. Sometimes the installation has, again, subsidies from the government that will help pay for them. Sometimes they don't. This is all very, very confusing kind of space, and it's not cheap. It's not inexpensive. If we want to put in heat pumps and replace our gas furnaces, we're looking at anywhere between my house, which basically the only room we heat is the living room. We don't have the gas heater anywhere else. My house would probably cost $1,000, $1,500 for a heat pump. But anybody else's that has more than one room to heat is going to start talking. We're talking $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, and with installation sometimes on top of that. You're going to save money, but that's in the long run. So how do we pay for this conversion? The link is supposed to go to an article about how one utility suggested these get paid for. And surprise, surprise, our Public Utilities Commission said, no, we can't do that. For whatever reason, they didn't want to do it. So we still don't have a way to pay for all those. We need banks to finance loans to pay for these appliances and for their installation. We need watchdogs to make sure that when these appliances get installed, they're installed right and without complaints. And if there are complaints, somebody addresses them. You know, this is one of those things where you're throwing a bunch of money around, and now we got to worry about who's using the money. So, comments on any of that
We
discussion?
got a couple of hands up. So you got Connie. Connie goes first, and then Judy.
Okay, my question is, with all that you're saying, it is all true. Building decarbonization costs. It just, everything costs. You buy a heater for the bathroom and it's gonna cost. My question is, are we as the committee going to look at things that would incentivize or help to incentivize homeowners and apartment dwellers and for renters when it, when it's not a situation that they're being taken advantage of, and, you know, the cost is being put upon them. But all of these things, we want to, you know, be able to see them get done. And I wanted to ask, you know, most of the money comes from the federal government. The rebates and the incentives, the grants, comes from the federal government, and then, you know, goes to different states depending on who's your senator. So will we be in any way trying to be influential, like with our state senators and our Congress in the state of California, our congressional staff, to ask them to help us to get funding or write bills, or, you know, submit requests on our behalf of the citizens in California?
That's a
Well,
great question, because it is complicated. Trying to
but we-
find somebody who knows all about it. I don't think there is anybody who knows all about it. There's always a program they don't know about.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But
but
rather
it's-
than being totally in the dark, that, you know, there are some people, some of our elected officials.
This question has been raised with the city of LA. You know, I spoke with Andrew DeBlock, who is the senior consultant to Katie Yaroslavsky, who chairs the Energy Committee. And we've raised it directly with her office. They're talking about it. They don't have any answers yet. We don't even know at this point whether there are programs in the city prosecutor's office or the county prosecutor's office that focus on contractors and fraud in contracting. I believe that there are such units, but I don't know what they are or how we get to use them if we need to. I hope we don't ever have to use them. So
Next in line,
we're at the very beginning of that question, Connie, and so that's why it's a great question. We've got
next person is Judy.
Hi, well, I put in a heat pump, you know, HVAC system a couple of years ago, and it was really, really difficult to find any installers that knew what the hell they were doing. I found one that I really liked. I mean, I just looking stuff on the web. Most of these people, they didn't even know like what I knew just by looking it up. And then, so like what they did in my attic space is then when they pumped all the insulation like surrounding it, so it keeps it really insulated. Well, when this I guess it was the city inspector came, city or county inspector came, she didn't even have a clue of what the guy was doing. She was saying he was doing it wrong. I mean, things were so far behind where they should be. I was really amazed. This is a couple years ago. I hope it's improved. But I mean, and then when I wanted to put in a heat pump water heater, most of the plumbers I spoke to hadn't really even heard of it. So there's maybe I don't know, maybe there's something we could do to you know, to this with the city to get the city educated about it and find out, you know, where to find these resources.
Yeah.
I'm sure that prices are going to come down a lot too, you know, in the near
So the
future.
idea of an information clearinghouse. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that kind of goes a little bit like all the different like I also looked up like all the different rebates. I mean, there's like, you know, localities have them, you know, like DWP has certain, I mean, you have to kind of piece it together. Now though, just went into effect this IRA rebates, which are massive you know, if people, especially, you know, people are more of a, you know, unless you're like a high income, you get somewhat, but then the lower income get really, really great rebates. So.
Cheryl's next up.
Yeah, so I am curious more about how the federal government is regulating or preventing it, you know, these changes, because I was just a part of a group, the RAND Corporation brought in community stakeholders to provide them with feedback on a plan, and they had actually the city of Santa Monica laid out in grids, and they had begun to go into grid by grid how they were going to convert everyone from gas to electricity. So this seems to be going on, or I don't know if it's in the planning stages. I'll have to check back with them, or if they're actually starting to implement this, but it looked like that they were very serious about it. And so maybe we can also get some ideas on how they intend to help people. And then they're also including cultural issues, like there's some communities that actually use gas for their method of cooking, and you know how that, you know, and that's a part of their culture going back hundreds of years, and how they can convert so that they will be able to maintain their cultural identity. So I think that's something.
Was that Rand and Santa Monica? Was that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Santa Monica.
yes. Rand is big, really big in Santa Monica.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Most of their projects.
Yeah, no, I know about that. Dawn used to have a contract there, have an office there for some. I at the very beginning, I wasn't sure what organization besides Santa Monica was the one you were talking about.
Yeah.
me
David's
just
got
say
one
that-
up. Oh, sorry, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, so Santa Monica is way ahead of the city of Los Angeles. They're actually, as you said, they're being proactive, something that cities never do. Has anybody ever heard of the city of Los Angeles being proactive about anything? No, they react and respond. But city of Santa Monica is actually doing just what you said, Cheryl. I'm all full of admiration that you've been contacted. That's wonderful. And keep up with it. I mean, I think we'd all like to hear what you're hearing and how they're dealing with it, because we've got no experience with what you're talking about yet.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
David.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I kind of want to touch on again is that I think we should look at developers and building managers when it comes to pushing decarbonization measures. You know, in those cases, there's a relatively small number of stakeholders are in charge of like a huge amount of emissions. And it might, in some cases, be like kind of another effective route compared to just trying to, you know, go after homeowners one by one. You know, there's also the question of like larger, you know, legislation like gas bans and stuff, which is unfortunately not in a great state after the Ninth Circuit basically banned gas bans. But I think we should, you know, continue to advocate to push our politicians to look for ways around it, or even try and get, you know, the EPCA changed if that becomes feasible at any point.
I'd forgotten about that. That decision. It really sucked. Yeah, and
Kelly, you've just had an experience with contractors, and
oh, I'm having so much fun. I'm having so much fun.
so what's it like going out and panels?
The entertain. If Mark's heard about this, the entertainment is I'm out here in Palm Desert. I hired a contracting company. It's apparently national, not local, which may be administratively part of the issue. Back in the first meeting was back in October or November of 22. It took them until November of this past year to actually do the installation. The installation itself happened very nicely. The problem is now it's been sitting hung in approval by their inspector, and then by the city inspector, and then by the utility inspector. and the company is already dunning me for the money, and I'm just telling them, you got to come out here and prove that it actually works before I give you a nickel. And that shut them up because the Southern California Edison has not, even though they've inspected it and they've told the contracting company that it's approved, they have not sent me the email that I'm supposed to be getting. And apparently my contracting company knows it. And so, and this is a year and a half of just background noise and aggravation. So yeah, and you know, I'm not poor. This is not a cheap system. It's got a battery on the side. It's supposed to be like 1.5 times it to cover the house, because planning at some point to get a car in here, and you know, an electric car and all that stuff. But geez, this has been a nightmare.
Unfortunately, that story is far more typical
Yeah.
than the story of, gee, I signed my name to get this thing installed, and a week later it was installed and it's working fine. I guarantee you won't hear that story from anyone.
Well, and actually, you'll hear that story from me on the installation I got on my roof in Venice. In Venice, I've got 18 panels up there. Those guys came out, they did a survey, they checked with the city came out and looked at their plans. Then they were out there, they had the whole thing up and running in like 4 days. And the biggest problem I had was they'd mispositioned some stuff, and they said, let's just get it inspected and signed off, and then we'll move that stuff. And so, you know, a week later, they moved this entire bank of panels from one side of my garage to the other. City never saw it, and city was fine with it. But that, I literally turned the whole thing around in less than 60 days. This,
So we all have Kelly on tape. We can now turn him in for the bounty, right?
Oh my God. Okay, I want to say one thing. To let us know there is hope, and that's what we should focus on. It's the things that we want to get done, and we want to find people, you know, look under every bush and rock to find the people who can help us to get these things done that we want to have done. And then I was thinking of money, because the federal government writes all kinds of programs, and the president signs the programs, and people all over are able to benefit from that. But somewhere, starting in the city, county, state, federal, it has to be known that this is what we need, this is what we're working for, and this is what we want. And we work together, and people that are working with us, our elected officials, we need to make sure that we're communicating with them and letting them know that, you know, we're monitoring, we're watching, we want things to happen. And I saw on television last night, night before last, in Arizona, there's a city, part of a city, that did not want cars in the whole city. And the area has no cars. No cars. I couldn't believe it, but that's what they wanted. And that's what they now have. But it didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen with them saying, oh, you know what, we really like to have a city without cars, and just one major transportation line to get us out to where we can get other transportation and bring us back so we can get our little motorpads and whatever and be safe and not worry about auto accidents and people being injured. And that's what they have now.
Thank you.
So we just, that's, you know, the focus that we have to keep, and we have to let them know we're watching.
That's the perfect segue, because we're supposed to end the meeting in 2 minutes. The bottom line is we need to work with our elected representatives to ask them to be proactive in making sure that we are ready for decarbonization, that there are watchdogs in place that we can talk to if things don't go right. We have to make sure that they are watching and are maybe even licensing. Maybe they need a licensing program. But the more they hear from us,
Mhm.
the more likely they are to be doing something. So
Okay.
I have to leave at 8:30. I would like to leave with the following. The discussion of recycling of hazardous waste earlier. For those of you who may not be aware of it, the Hyperion plant at their last entrance on Imperial Boulevard, as you get almost to the beach, they will take anything you've got except medical and sharps all weekend, every weekend. They're always open Saturday and Sunday. It's a real pleasure. You can dump your paint, your motor oil, your old television sets, your mercury-laden fluorescent tubes, all that stuff. You put it in the back of your car. You don't even get out of their car. They're in hazmat suits and gloves. They just tell us what we're taking, and they take it out of your car, and you drive away. So,
Oh, that's good to know.
so just so you know, Hyperion plant at the end of Imperial. The entrance is on the south side of the street, and then you can go down to Manhattan Beach and have a coffee and enjoy the day. So,
Yeah, thank you. I was asking David for the citation to the case he referred to, and he provided that in the chat.
oh, yeah. The bloody Ninth Circuit used to be a lot nicer than it is now. Yeah. Thanks. That's excellent. Mark, I'm going to bail out. You're going to close the recording. I will see you later.
next meeting is tentatively March 21st. So we'll be hearing more about that. Hopefully between now and then, we will have the IRA meeting, the Inflation Reduction Act meeting rescheduled, but we still don't have a date on that. Any questions before I shut down the meeting? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Bye, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.